June 17, 2025. The day when the Ukrainian front line was once again shaken by the roar of battle, the echoes of artillery, and the screams of the sky being torn to pieces by airstrikes. The entire line of contact, from the northern Kharkiv to the southern borders of Kherson, experienced another wave of enemy attacks and pressure, but also steadfast, coordinated defense from the armed forces of Ukraine. In the north, where the Kharkiv direction remains one of the key areas for the enemy, attacks on Vovchansk and Kupiansk continue with particular ferocity. Vovchansk, which has become a symbol of resilience and pain, has today withstood at least 7 attempts to break through. Russian forces covered the city with 29 guided aerial bombs, trying to wipe out the fortified positions of the defenders. But the Ukrainians not only held their ground, but also launched counterattacks. Equipment was destroyed, including at least 1 armored vehicle, 2 artillery systems, and more than 180 Russian soldiers. On the outskirts of Kupiansk, in the areas of Sinkivka, Petropavlivka, and Stelmakivka, battles raged with varying degrees of success. Between 7 and 16 attack attempts were recorded here in just one day. The Russian 138th Brigade and elements of the 83rd Airborne Division were active in this sector, but most of the attacks were repelled and the enemy forces suffered significant losses. In the Petropavlivka and Sinkivka areas, our units successfully used kamikaze drones and artillery to destroy enemy equipment and manpower. In the Sumy region, where the enemy has been actively creating a diversionary front in recent weeks, the key event was liberation of Andrivka. This small village has become a symbol of determination. Ukrainian units not only repelled the attacks but also launched a counteroffensive, advancing 7 kilometers into the temporarily occupied territory. At the same time, border areas, in particular Barvinkov, Vetarn, and Arkadivka, suffered from constant mortar and artillery shelling. In total, more than 13 waves of artillery strikes were recorded in this direction. In the center of the front, fierce battles for Donbass are underway. In the Lyman sector, Ukrainian defenses were able to stop between 5 and 10 attacks in the areas of Mykiivka, Serebryanka, and Kapanka. Bakhmut, which is once again becoming a hot spot, saw more than 30 clashes in just one day. The areas of Kalinivka, Ivanivsk, and Orikovo-Vasilivka have been the site of the most intense fighting, accompanied by constant artillery duels and drone strikes. Avdiivka, which has been in the news for the past 6 months, today experienced another barrage, 54 artillery strikes, 80 Grad rocket salvos, and several KB strikes. Despite the fierce onslaught, Ukrainian air defense and defenses held out. Units operating in underground shelters played a special role, striking enemy logistics. Mariinka and Krasnohorivka remain the scene of close combat. Here, the enemy is trying to break through the Ukrainian defense line street by street, but all attempts end in losses. The fighting is taking place amid complete destruction of infrastructure, where even trees have become machine gun nests. Further south, in the Pokrovsk-Kharkiv direction, the enemy carried out more than 41 attacks near Novoalexandrivka, Primizna, and Yelizavetivka. Another 7 attacks were recorded in Kurikov and Pereskovivka. Here, the Russian Federation is actively using infantry, which is being pushed forward with the support of armored vehicles and aircraft. However, Ukrainian fighters are competently using anti-tank missile systems, kamikaze drones, and artillery. Enemy losses in this sector alone exceed 800 people. In Toretsk and Pivnik, fighting continues in urban areas. More than 20 attacks have been repelled, and the enemy has attempted several times. The enemy has attempted to capture part of the infrastructure, but all attempts have been thwarted. There have also been reports of Russian assault groups armed with self-propelled guns and heavy mortars. Ukrainians are responding with precision artillery strikes, destroying equipment and infantry in densely populated combat zones. The Zaporizhia direction is relatively stable, but the enemy continues to exert pressure. In the areas of Molotov-Machka and Novoprokopivka, 2 attacks were recorded, both of which were repelled. The defense forces here are using the latest mining systems, as well as guided artillery, which allows them to accurately destroy enemy groups. As they approach their positions, In the south, in the Kherson sector, 6 attacks on the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine were recorded, as well as more than 20 shellings of civilian infrastructure. The enemy continues to use kamikaze drones and aviation. In response, the armed forces of Ukraine destroyed several enemy strongholds and carried out a successful raid behind the occupiers' lines, inflicting losses. In total, Ukrainian air defense forces shot down 111 drones and 8 missiles along the entire front line during the day. Jamming of the EPR disabled 48 drones. Enemy aircraft became more active, especially in the Donetsk direction. But a significant part of the UAVs were shot down or diverted from their targets thanks to electronic warfare systems. Russia's losses for the day are estimated at over 1,200 people. 10 tanks, 25 armored vehicles, 18 artillery systems, and 2 multiple launch rocket systems were destroyed. There are also reports of the destruction of the latest Russian Su-57 fighter jet. Information is being verified. The situation remains tense at the international level as well. U.S. President Donald Trump has once again entered into conflict with businessman Elon Musk over his statements on geopolitics and military support. The dispute escalated into a public scandal on Twitter/X, which could affect perceptions of support for Ukraine in the U.S. Europe continues to actively support Ukraine. Germany and France have announced new aid packages. IRIS-T air defense systems, missiles with a range of up to 250 kilometers, and ammunition. The United Kingdom has provided another tranche of armored vehicles and cash support, which will be used to purchase FPV drones. The front remains active but manageable. The Ukrainian army is holding on to every piece of land with superhuman courage. Even under a barrage of enemy artillery, suffering losses, the defense forces demonstrate steadfastness. The enemy is throwing in more and more reserves, including those mobilized without training, but the quality of the Ukrainian